Welcome, everybody, to the Rye Town Council meeting of July 18th, 2024. Please rise, and Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make every decision fair-minded and the best interests for all its residents. Amen.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jill Axelrod. Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Councilperson Pamela Jaffe. Absent tonight. Right?
Absent. Pam is traveling this week.
Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Present.
Councilperson Randy Sellier. Present. And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Present. Thank you. I'd like to welcome County Executive George Latimer and Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins, who have kindly graced us with their appearances, and we welcome you wholeheartedly.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor, members of the council, and those who are watching at home, those who are in the room tonight. Ken and I are visiting, as we have been doing with all of the towns, cities, and villages across Westchester County, to give a brief update on where we are in the county government. We've tried to create a partnership over these 7 years with, in this case, the town of Rye, with all of the municipal governments. And sometimes, you know, the mountain comes to you, and that's what tonight is about, to just give you a brief update on a couple of issues and open the dialogue as we go through the second half of the year. I want to note that I don't come empty-handed, as my mother once told me. I brought copies, which I guess I'll give to Debbie to circulate for both members and others in the organization, which is the quarterly calendar of parks events out of various county parks. These could either sit in a box in the recreation office in the county government, or we can get them out into the community so people will know what's happening in our various parks. And we have a lot happening this quarter, so we'll provide those for you so that you have a chance to see it. Very briefly, just as a baseline, Westchester County is a regional local government. You are a local government, we are a regional local government, and we're tasked either by state law or by past practice to do certain types of functions that you wouldn't expect every town, village, or city to do. So where you have certain responsibilities as a town government, and particularly your unique situation as a town government where villages comprise the local government underneath you, you have responsibility for parks and bridges and things of that nature. You collect taxes and so forth. Our responsibilities are for things that you would not expect every city, town, or village to do. We incarcerate prisoners. We run an airport. We run a bus system. We have sewer treatment responsibility. We have some regional parks that complement the local parks that have across the board. County government is a $2.4 billion operation. That compares with the state government being about, round numbers, $230 billion. So we're, you know, 1/100th of the size and scope of the state in terms of what our government does. We have 4,200 employees, and as I mentioned, some of these departments, Department of Health, very impactful when issues arise, Department of Community Mental Health, Parks Recreation, we have a county police function, we have the Department of Social Services, which is our largest department, the Corrections Department, which is the second largest department in county government. We have Probation Department responsibilities. Our DPW Transportation Department is there. Then we have lots of offices and so forth. And then the usual back of the house functions, planning, budget, law, IT. Of course, as you well know, as Councilwoman Axelrod knows, particularly the Westchester County Board of Legislators serves as a legislative body with the executive branch. And it does divide when you get to the level of the county government, stays divided through the state and the federal government. But I'd like to think we have the best legislative executive level of relationship. Both Ken and I have been legislators. We both chaired the Board of Legislators in past years. So hopefully, as the town interacts with the county, you get a better sense of the county's willingness to do something as an entity, even though it does require the legislature and the executive to be in sync on certain kinds of things. Ken is going to talk about some of the local issues right now that we're tracking, that track the town and the county, and then I'll just close off with a couple of other things.
Thanks, George, and certainly it's always great to be here in town of Rye, and we wanted to follow up on a couple of the items that we've been working on together. Certainly last year is one of the festivities that we had was at Playland Park, and certainly talking about the fence. The county did reinstall that fence, and since we haven't heard anything this year, we assume that everything is working fine, Supervisor.
Working just fine, thank you.
No, well, and we appreciate the conversations that we've been able to have together to make sure that those things get done. This past week, we had another opportunity to have discussion based on our planning board's discussion about the bathhouse. The $427,000 that was added into the county's budget for parks, recreation, and historic structures was just being added into the planning board's budget for, the county's budget for capital for 2024. Usually that happens in February, but because the amount of projects that the Board of Legislators put forth, they actually asked for additional information to come from the planning board, required that for the Board of Legislators. That was adopted in the last session, and we are trying to get right now the actual resolution, Supervisor, to be able to see exactly what the planning board added to the capital budget. That's the beginning of our process. We certainly will work with the members of the team here and the manager, the town manager, to be able to move that item forward. Supervisor Zugman's well on top of this, so we know that we're going to continue to do the work and the work that the town has done to be able to get additional funds to make sure that that bathhouse can be restored to its grandeur and to be able to move forward, and we're looking forward to that. Finally, we wanted to make sure that we talked about the modifications that were signed into law by County Executive Latimer that the Board of Legislators adopted unanimously for senior citizen exemptions, where there was additions that were done to those exemptions that took out some adjusted gross income dollars to make sure that our senior citizens can get the full benefit of county taxes. And certainly we look forward to the members of the town and the assessor working with everyone to make sure that they get the benefits that they're entitled to.
Excuse me, Ken, the town also passed that resolution when it was sent to us by when the state legislature passed it. So I think most of the governments in the town of Rye have passed that. I'm not sure they all have. I know that we have, and I believe the Portchester School Board has, and I know that the Portchester Village Board was considering it, and I believe that the Rybrook Board of Trustees may have passed it as well.
Thanks. So just to recap, we had this conversation with the Rye Town Park Commission just a couple of nights ago, but we operate on a calendar year fiscal year, and so this is the middle, just slightly past the middle of our fiscal year. We're in the process of starting to prepare for the 2025 budget year. In October, we released to the Board of Legislators for their review the capital budget, and that would include a host of different things, include things that have been carried over from past budgets that have been adopted. Now, because of the unique situation here, there are capital projects that directly affect the Village of Portchester, the Village of Rybrook, or the Village of Mamaroneck. They aren't directly a town responsibility, but they fall within the jurisdiction of the town. So those capital projects become of importance to look at. Some of them are delayed, such as the money that we've set aside to redo Westchester Avenue from Bowman Avenue to the heart of downtown, awaiting for an improvement project. But those are things that we can dialogue about offline as we go forward. We also then have an operating budget that will be given to the Board of Legislators on or about November 7th, I think, or 8th, in that time frame. That's where we find out the tax rate, but more importantly, everything else that goes into our situation. I would say that as we monitor at mid-year where we are with the budget, we're balanced, and we expect to close our county budget in good order. We have a good reserve fund, but we have watched that sales tax revenue has not been growing at the projected rate. Right now, sales tax revenue through the first portion of the year is ahead of where we were last year, but it is not growing at the 3% rate that we projected when we put our budget together. We have other revenues that can offset, and we can certainly take actions to conserve money for our budget, but it's important to know as we get closer to the end of our respective budget years what we think will happen, because sales tax is a revenue stream that oscillates depending on what's happening out in the economy in general. So we share that as a general input, and as we get closer to the main event of the 25 budget, we'll share that information sort of freely. And then the other point I want to mention before we close, open up to any questions that you have, is that, as we know, the state legislature passed a year ago a law that would require towns and counties to align our elections from odd-numbered years into even-numbered years. At the county level, it does not involve county judges, it does not involve the district attorney nor the county clerk. It does involve county executive and county legislators. So we have passed enabling legislation which is on hold until the cases that are in court have been adjudicated. And if a court determines that somehow this law that was passed by the state is unconstitutional, then there'll be a back and forth. We won't take any action until all of the judicial actions have been taken. And if it determines that at the trial level, you know, it ends up one way, but it goes on appeal, we'll still wait to implement. But what it would mean for us and for you as well, that we would then have to implement that law and change our respective elections from odd to even-numbered year. As we are looking at it at this stage of the game, 25 would be the year that we would make those adjustments if the law has been deemed to be constitutional and is in place. That would make the county executive race in 2025 be a 3-year term, which would align it then to an even-numbered year in 2028 going forward. Now, there is a referendum on the ballot this year, which the Board of Legislators has adopted. I support the legislation from my past experience, but it would allow for county legislators to have 4-year terms. If the voters were to pass that referendum in November, then that would be implemented in 2025, and then the transition reality would be that county legislators would run for a 3, not a 4-year term to align odd to even. A little complicated, and for the residents, it probably sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, but it ties into what you know as well as we do, our structures. This does not apply to villages, it does not apply to cities. Those, if the state determines that they're going to move those elections to even-numbered years, then they would have to do that with a referendum. But in the meantime, they do have the authority, they certainly have the authority to do it by law, which is what they've done, and so we'll see how that turns out. You're in the same boat that we're in, and you know, you'll figure it out as we figure it out, but we just want to highlight that for you. The 2 legislators that represent parts of the town of Rye, Nancy Barr and Catherine Parker, are both participant in the process, both for the 4-year terms and for the adoption of situations. Legislator Parker is term limited under our existing county laws, as am I, and she would, under normal circumstances, complete her 12 years of service in 2025. Legislator Barr is not term limited by those laws. So all of that will go into the mix, but for right now, you have their legislators, you have us in the executive branch, and we're happy to work with you going forward.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Come on, there must be, you know.
We put him to sleep. We apologize.
No, I just want to say that, you know, it's been a pleasure working with you. George, we've known each other a very long time. And Ken, I've known you a long time, not a very long time. It's really been a pleasure working with both of you. And when George was first elected, he made a promise to all the municipalities that he would be a true partner and would come to meetings and would discuss things. And that has come to be. And I don't want to get political, but I'm looking forward to the time when the county executive will be our congressman, and you, Mr. Jenkins, will be our county executive, and look forward to a continued productive partnership with you and with George in Congress. And I think that, you know, I can speak for the town of Rye and the various municipalities in this area, that you have been a true partner, and we have been partners with our county legislators, both Nancy Barr and Catherine Parker, as well as with our other municipal officials in Rybrook, in Portchester, in Mamaroneck, Larchmont. I mean, you know, what a lot of people may not realize when they go about their daily tasks and are not really concerned with government, but we mostly all work cooperatively together. We have the Municipal Officials Association that gather monthly, and that includes all of the towns, all of the villages, all of the cities. And I have a separate supervisors group that gathers monthly. And by the way, you guys are always welcome to join us. and we discuss issues. And I know from experience, for myself personally, and I know for the other elected officials, we can pick up the phone if we have a concern and call either of you, and we get you, and you respond. Sometimes you can't do things because they just can't be done, or it may be a little difficult to do. Actually, everything can be done. The impossible takes a little longer. But we are so happy for our relationship with the county and with both of you personally. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. If there's no other questions, we'll bid you good evening and good luck with your audit.
You're also, well, unless somebody lied to me, the audit came out very well. So,
Thank you all.
thank you. And you can stay for the rest of the meeting, feel free.
Thank you for the offer.
Okay, before we get to the audit, the minutes of June 13th, I assume everybody has read them. If there are no objections or additions or corrections, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have a presentation from O'Connor Davies, LLP, presenting our Town of Rye audit for the year 2023. Jeff Shaver, welcome.
Thank you. That's a very difficult act to follow. I wasn't anticipating that
It
this
always
evening.
is. Jeff, I gotta tell you, I go to events and, you know, they call on people to speak, and as county executive, George goes first. And it's always tough to follow George. It really is.
I'm glad, this is Scott Oling to my left, senior partner with the firm, here to assist me. He's probably not going to say too much, unlike what he normally does, because he did have some oral surgery today. But thanks to Scott for coming here for support. I'm just going to take you through, similar to last year, an overview of the audit, and then go right into the general fund results, revenues, expenditures compared to budget, and go into some details on those revenues and expenditures. And I'll talk about the fund balance a little bit, and I'll summarize the debt at the end of the presentation. So in terms of the audit, field work is complete. Financial statements have been reviewed by management. We've completed the audit. We've issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's an auditing term. In layman's terms, we call that a clean audit opinion, and that's the most favorable opinion that the town can receive. What that means is the numbers in the audited financial statements are complete and accurate, and the note disclosures are also complete and accurate and fairly stated. Auditors are also required to inform those charged with governance or the board if there's any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls noted during the conduct of the audit. I'm happy to report that we did not identify any of those, and no instances of fraud were noted during the course of the audit. In terms of the financial statements, we like to say the only part of the audit document that belongs to us as auditors is the auditor's opinion, where we state that it's an unmodified opinion. The rest of the numbers in the financial statements is the property of the town. So the town is also responsible for selecting and implementing the appropriate accounting policies, fairly presenting the financial statements in accordance with US GAAP, maintaining effective internal controls, compliance with laws, regulations, and contracts and agreements, and of course, providing all the records to the auditors as we ask for them. So from there, I'm going to pivot into the general fund. This is the schedule of revenues, expenditures compared to the budget. You'll see it's a 4-column presentation. The first column is the budget as originally adopted. The second column is the final budget, encompassing any transfers or amendments approved by the board. The third column is the actual revenues and expenditures and a change in fund balance. And finally, the variance column is the difference between the final budget and the actual results. You can see in terms of total revenues, the initial budget called for $6,887,000 of revenues to be collected. The actual revenues were $7,100,000, some 213,000 greater than what was anticipated to be collected. On the next slide, I'll take you through some of those details. On the expenditure side of the budget, 7,201,000 was anticipated to be spent, while the actual expenditures, 6,468,000, some 733,000 less than was anticipated to be spent. You'll see on the bottom left hand, there's a number 353,775. That's the amount of fund balance that the town board adopted in its budget to balance it, or use that amount of fund balance in their adopted budget. To said in another way, if the town collected every dollar it anticipated and spent every dollar it anticipated, its fund balance would have come down by that $353,000. However, as I stated before, you generated more revenues than anticipated and spent less than anticipated for a total positive budgetary variance of $946,000. The difference between the anticipated use of fund balance and the budget surplus becomes your actual surplus. So that was an increase to your fund balance of $592,379. We started the year with fund balance, general fund balance of $4,641,000 and end the year at $5,233,000. Some details on the revenues. Largest revenue item would be the real property taxes, coming very close to the budget. That number will fluctuate as tax collections on old receivables can change that number. Other tax items represent mostly interest and penalties on those property taxes. You'll see that was slightly less than what was budgeted, $258,000. The big positive variance this year, use of money in property, that's a state code, and within that code is where you would record interest income. So the interest income was very favorable this year. Interest rates increased significantly at the end of 22 and stayed high into 2023. Most municipalities did not anticipate that in their budgets for 2023. So it's common that we're seeing the budget for interest income being much lower than what actually was achieved. So certainly a positive note, 557,000 greater than what was anticipated. And I'll also compare it to 2022 when you only collected about 80,000. So it went from 80,000 to about 582,000. So definitely a significant increase there. Fines and forfeitures are the fees and fines and fees collected by the Justice Court, approximately 188,000. What was less than what was budgeted. There was a small piece of federal aid that was not budgeted, and that's related to FEMA. And state aid, there's a few different items in there. One is the mortgage tax distribution, which the state requires us to call state aid, and also the per capita aid, and that was some 45,000 greater than what was budgeted. As the real estate market did take a little bit of a turn for the worse in 2023, you'll see the numbers did drop from 22 into 2023, where the 22 numbers were 1,468,000 between those two categories, and the 2023 numbers were 1,242,000. So down slightly, but it appears that you did anticipate that when adopting your 2023 budget. In terms of the expenditures, you'll see the total amount of the appropriations, $7,241,000, while the actual expenditures, $6,508,000, some $733,000 less than what was anticipated to be spent. Certainly favorable for the town. Most of those, most of the savings was achieved in the general government support category. That's where all the town administrative functions are generally housed. Some of the significant variances were in the finance department, $230,000, law, $203,000, the executive branch, $96,000, and also you had some contingency budgeted that was not spent at all in the amount of $100,000. And a few other of the smaller variances in that category, bringing you to that total of $813,000. And that really was the story in terms of the appropriation side of the budget. is where you generated all your savings within that category to bring you to a net variance with the final budget of $733,000. So what does it all come down to? What does it all lead to? The general fund balance. This is a 2-year presentation. You'll see again, I mentioned the total fund balance in the general fund. Total fund balance, $5,233,000 at the end of 2023. At the end of 2022, it was $4,641,000. Comprised of these various buckets, the non-spendable category represents prepaid expenditures. Typically, the town would pay bills in December related to the next fiscal year, and that's earmarked or carved out to show that you can't spend that on anything else. You can't use those funds on anything else. The restricted fund balance relates to debt service. That was a premium you received on the last bond you issued, and you have been utilizing that debt service reserve to offset your expenditures, with I believe 2024 being the final year. So that 161 is slated to be used to offset debt service expenditures in 2024. So going forward, unless there's a new premium, that number would be 0 next year. And then there's the assigned category, the amount used to balance the 2024 budget of $325,000, up from $180,000 in the 2023 budget. And then that leaves us with the remainder fund balance, what we call unassigned fund balance, not earmarked specifically in any way by the town board, unencumbered, available for discretion at the use of the board, and that number is $4,680,000. Compare that to the 2024 budget, which is approximately $7.5 million. You're looking at roughly 62% unassigned fund balance compared to your budget. One thing we always talk about at the caution to the board during my presentation, and I know the comptroller always talks about it, is the town does tax collections for all the other municipalities within the town, even though its budget's only maybe $7.5 million. It's collecting property taxes for all these other municipalities, totaling roughly $180 million. When those go uncollected at a certain point in time, the town has to pay those funds over to those municipalities, regardless of whether the town has collected them. In the past, that number's typically been around $2 million. The fund balance serves as a cushion, if you will, in order to allow you that cash flow to give those funds to the other municipalities while you're waiting collection on those old taxes. I just wanted to cap off with a summary of the bonds outstanding. Total bonds outstanding at December 31st, 2023, $11,370,000. Two bond issuances, with one being $5,355,000 and the next being $6 million. The debt service obviously being budgeted for on an annual basis and will mature in 2036 and 2041. That is all we had for prepared remarks. If there's any questions that anybody has, we'd be happy to try and answer them.
Board have any questions? No questions? Well, I have something to say. Sort of an elaboration, and Dave, you could step in here if you want. You know, we've made a great effort to make sure we have good tax collections. And, you know, we've gotten our unpaid taxes, our receivables down. If you look at our current financial statement, I know that this report goes through December 31st of 23, but on Dave Burns' latest financial statement, the receivables are down to just about 1%, which I think are, they go down all the time because we've taken an aggressive position in making sure that the taxes are collected and going after those who are delinquent in their taxes. And as you pointed out, you talked about reserved and unreserved fund balances. We need to reserve money for uncollected taxes. So that money is not available for general government purposes. And by having a very good rate of collection, or in reverse, a very low rate of delinquency, there's more money from our taxpayers that are able to fund the government without resorting to a tax anticipation note or other means, that would be harmful to the taxpayer. Because, and I say this as a prelude to something else, those people, the 99% of the people who are current in their taxes, actually have to support the 1% who are not. And that becomes a problem for the reasons that I just outlined and more. Also, I just want the public to be aware of a piece of legislation that was passed this year by the state legislature and is waiting the governor's signature, which decreases the interest that the town could charge for delinquent taxpayers to the prime rate, whatever that may be. It's a fairly complicated piece of legislation, but I wanted the residents, while you're presenting this audit, to be aware of this, because this may have an adverse effect on our budget. We collect, I don't know if you said the actual figure, our interest and penalty figure. Do you recall what that was? Right, right. And I spoke to Dave Burns about it, and if the governor signs this legislation, we may have because of the decrease in rate, because we charge more than 12% now, to decrease the rate practically in half may cost $200,000 to $300,000 in interest and penalties out of our budget. And where does that have to come from? It comes from the taxpayers who do pay their bills. So this is an important piece of legislation that I have written to the state senator about. The Association of Towns has sent a letter in opposition to the governor signing this bill. And strangely, it affects towns only in Westchester, because we in Westchester, Westchester towns, as you pointed out earlier, guarantee the collection for the schools, the villages, and the county. In every other county in the state, it is the county that guarantees the collection. And in most cases, obviously, the counties are much larger than the towns. They can absorb it a little bit better. So this is an important piece of legislation that I just want people to be aware of, and the fact that we're on top of it, and we are trying to take action with this regard. So just wanted to throw that out there into the ether so people are aware of it, and it's public. Any comment on that? Nope? No? Okay. It's out there. Anyway, is that your presentation?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Very good presentation. We have a motion to accept the audit. I don't know why we do this. It's a policy. We don't have any power over the audit. The audit is what it is. And we don't have, obviously, any objections. It's a very favorable audit. So may I have a motion and exception on item number 4.1 to accept the town audit by O'Connor Davies.
So moved.
A second.
Call the roll, please, Hope.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Thomas Norrie?
Yes.
Councilperson Selyer?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Thank you. We'll see you next year. And we'll see you next month at the commission meeting. Our resolutions, first resolution is to set a date for a special town meeting, which will be on July 25th, which is next Thursday at this time. The major reason to have a special meeting is so that we can have a public hearing to get authorization to submit an application to Westchester County for the Community Development Block Grant Program, also known as CDBG. So, may I have a motion and a second to set the special council meeting?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll, don't need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The next item is to schedule now that we have a special meeting, we have a resolution to schedule a public hearing to authorize submittal of the aforesaid CDBG program application to the County of Westchester. May I have a motion and a second to set the public hearing for July 25th at 6 p.m.?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
This one, let us call the roll on this.
Roll call. Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Selyer?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Our next item, Jill, I don't want to surprise you with this, but I'm gonna throw this over to you to explain a little bit. This is a resolution recommending that the Westchester County Board of Legislators renew and reaffirm with updates the terminal use agreements of the commercial airlines operating at Westchester County Airport. Do you want to just take us through this?
Yeah, so I had the privilege of working with some really dedicated people. We had 4 meetings of the airport task force to talk about what the future of the airport is going to look like. And the task force had some recommendations that they were hoping that all of the surrounding municipalities would be willing to accept via resolution to put their support behind it when the county goes to make decisions about how the terminal use agreements are going to be structured in the future. Pretty much the highlights are that they would basically reaffirm the substance of the existing terminal use agreements, also known as TUAs, adjust some of the fees, operating costs to represent the current costs to the county, and there have also been issues regarding compensation for the EMS services at the airport, which are provided by the Portchester, Rybrook Emergency Medical Services, and how they would be compensated for that. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Harrison doesn't contribute, have EMS there or anything? Because it's like on the border with Harrison?
That's not my understanding, but
Okay.
I could, that was not anything that was brought up
Okay.
during the meeting. So Chris Bradbury was there, Peter Schlacht is another Rybrook resident, so perhaps there was an overemphasis on the.
Were there representatives from Harrison on the committee?
I don't believe so, no. It was Greenwich, Rye, City of Rye, obviously myself from the town of Rye, as I said, Rybrook.
Yeah, you and Michelle Goodman from Rye Net.
Yeah, oh, right. that's
Right.
correct.
For representative town of Rye, we had, pardon me?
Harrison's not mentioned in all the meetings.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Intermunicipal.
Yeah, the meetings were done by Zoom, so it was just lots of faces, so.
Okay.
I'm sure in the beginning we all introduced ourselves, but it can be challenging to remember everybody's name, let alone where they're from and all of that. But I really do want to take the opportunity to commend the members of the task force, who did devote their time, their energy, their knowledge to really making sure that everything that happens will be in the best interest of the residents of Westchester County. Obviously, the airport is a huge part of all of our lives, particularly those of us who live in proximity to it, and it's important. So I do want to thank everyone.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second?
If it's appropriate, I'd love to make the motion.
Second, please? Please call the roll, Hope.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Selyer? And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes, thank you. And resolution 5.4 to authorize expenditure of up to $40,000 for information technology. Basically, this is to convert from our .com website to a .gov. And Debbie has been spearheading this.
Yes, and I just very skillfully deleted the presentation. And this is a program, all of you have received this, the deck that explains our transition. It is a multi-phase process. We have done all of the bottom of the iceberg preparation work, planning how we're going to approach our transition to .gov. I just want to remind you that this is a taking on a .gov email address not only provides trust to members, residents, and members of the community who interact with members of the government, but it also is required in order for us to be in compliance both with the .gov regulations, with the federal agency called CISA, with particularly any government having to do with the justice court system and the police have requirements that by CJIS, that we must comply with. And by transitioning to .gov, we accomplish all of that. And between the software and the labor to enable this transition, we're asking for a capital authorization of up to $40,000. We expect it will be less, but we put it at $40,000 to be safe. Do you have questions? I'm happy to walk through this if you'd like.
I think we've been exposed to this. You know, just I think for the residents who may be viewing this either now or in the future, every government in the state of New York, at least, I'm not sure if it's nationwide, but certainly in the state of New York, is going to be required to migrate to .gov for security as well as other reasons. And it's my understanding also that basically we're going to be migrating to Office 365 as part of this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, and at long last, we will all be on the same generation. It will be a lovely thing.
So we're going to be very up to date. This is going to go along with updating our website. We're going to be updating, we just started our Text My Gov service, which there's some glitches, but I've been getting texts about different events, and I think it's really great to be able to have everything come to your phone and you see what's going on, your calendar, you know where to go. It's really good. People will want to know, actually, this was my question when we started this. How did we come to the $40,000 figure, and did it go out to bid? And Debbie explained to me what she's going to now say.
We
as to
are,
what the price
we
is.
are our information technology provider, DCC Inc., will be handling this, and we are piggybacking on the contract that was adopted by and put out to bid by the Village of Portchester. So the hourly rates are consistent with the rates that we agreed to when we started the contract with DCC, and they're up on the board now. So that this is how we arrived at what we expect not to exceed $40,000.
The only thing I have is I see a typo on the resolution. It says current domain name of RideTownNewYork.gov to RideTownNewYork.gov. It should be RideTownRide.com.
Yes, thank you.
That's the only thing I see. That's the only,
Yeah, it should be townofryny.gov to rytowny.gov. Good pickup, Tom.
Well, that's the only thing I have.
Yeah, we just did this at the county. We recently switched over to .gov. And I think just from a logical standpoint, it seems right to be at .gov. And of course, we did have discussions with IT about the safety that it will bring in having a proper domain name. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great
We'll
idea.
follow your lead.
Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to do something in conjunction with Westchester to try to get the best price that we can for a service that we need.
All right. Any further questions? Nope. Motion and a second, please.
I'll move.
Call the roll.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
Councilperson Selyer?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman?
Yes. Thank you. And now we get to the fun part, our tax cert resolutions. I think we're gonna have Charlie talk to us.
Good evening, Charlie, Town Assessor. How are you doing this evening, everyone?
We're good.
All right. Where are we starting first? The point?
We're gonna start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. For those from the, yeah, the 5.5, that's the Bowman Avenue.
Yep, Bowman Avenue, the point. This is a small apartment complex on Bowman Avenue. There's a few years at stake. A couple years were withdrawn out, 20, 21, and 22. Those were withdrawn. We have 2 years that with refunds, 2018 and 19. Town is approximately $250. We're looking at the village at approximately $16,500 and the school district at approximately $23,000. We've spoken to the school district and the village. They're aware of this case. It's been going on for a few years, obviously since 2018. They know the expenditure, and we spoke to them last month in regards to it, so they're expecting this.
Just let me just say this preliminary to all of these. When a property owner files a tax cert, it's obviously, it's a legal proceeding, and we have a process now where we advise the school districts, the villages, of every single property that files in their jurisdiction, and we have meetings several times a year. We used to have them quarterly when we began, and right now it's 3 times a year at appropriate times, so that each of the taxing entities is completely aware of what properties have filed a tax cert, where in the legal proceeding it is. In other words, have they filed a note of issue or not, meaning to get on the calendar? Has there been a scheduling order where basically the court says, okay, we got to get this going now? And we review these, as I say, periodically with each of the jurisdictions in a Zoom meeting with the chief financial officers of each jurisdiction, whether it be the school or the village. Of course, their trustees are always invited to attend should they so choose to do so. And it's a process that we've been following now for a number of years, and it's worked very smoothly. So there are no surprises. And these are done in time for budgeting purposes. They know what's coming down, what may be settled, and what the numbers will be. So they have time to prepare that when they do their budgets, which is the school obviously does their budget in the springtime, and the villages do their budget a little bit earlier because they're due, I think their budget start, their year starts, I think, is it April 1? The fiscal year. So we have meetings in time for each of them to know, and we do it several times a year, so we know what's coming down the road, usually at least a year in advance.
First to June 30th.
Pardon me?
The fiscal period for the school,
No, I said the village.
Oh,
The
village,
school,
yeah,
the
that's
school,
Ju-
the school starts July
Yeah.
1st,
and,
ends June 30th.
1st to May
Yeah.
30th.
So, with that explanation, on the point, motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Thank you. I think we'll do this by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next one is,
5.6.
this is 2 Highland. This is a little bit larger. Charlie?
Yes, 2 Highland Street. This is the StoreQuest self-storage. We have 2 years at stake, 22 and 23. It is a substantial settlement. To give a little background on this, back in a few years before this 2022, there was a transfer of 2 self-storage facilities. The transfer came over as one. So when they did the analysis, they saw a value of 18 million. The assessment then increased, which we find out down the road that it was actually 2 self-storage facilities. So we were able to figure out the issue and adjust the 23 value so that we didn't have 2 years at these large numbers. So we only have 1 year at stake, really. So that's a 2022. The town refund is approximately 4,800. The village approximately 92,000, and the school district approximately 175,000. But we were lucky enough to get it ahead of time so that we don't have double those numbers.
Okay. So that was just an error.
Yes. Well, the transfer came over as an error. They were supposed to document it correctly. It wasn't documented correctly, and when they revalued it, they did not know. So,
Any questions? Motion in a second, please.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is Irving Avenue.
Bellows Broad LLC, 148 Irving Avenue. This is a small mixed-use building with apartments and a storefront on the lower level. It was 2 years at stake, 2020 and 2021. 21 was withdrawn, and we have a small refund. Town refund is $18, village refund $497, and the school refund is approximately $1,033.
No questions? Motion in a second.
Oh, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the last one is Graceland Terrace.
This is 182 Grace Church Street. We have 1 year at stake, year 2020. A little background on this, that was the year we did the commercial revaluation. It was valued, this is an affordable apartment complex, it was not valued as affordable, so it was valued as a full market rent building. So we tweaked the value down the years after, so there was only 1 year at stake. So the refund for the town is approximately $1,200. The village refund is approximately $33,000, and the school refund is approximately $70,000.
Any questions?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the resolutions. Thank you, Charles. Don't go away.
That's right.
More to come.
You have an assessor's memo. You want to talk about our tax certs, which we just mentioned.
Yes, I gave a memo to the council to review. I'll start with, just to give you a basic idea of the 2023 assessment roll and the 2024, which is just came out on June 1st, and right now the Board of Assessment Review is reviewing everyone's cases at this point. We had a increase over from 2023 to 2024 on the residential properties of approximately 4.34% in market value. Commercial properties also went up. They increased approximately 2.73%. So both residential and commercial saw an increase this year. Much less than it's been the last few years, but it's still on the up. Speaking about the Board of Assessment Review, our grievance numbers are trending in the right direction at this point. From 23 to 24, we're looking at a reduction in grievances of approximately 9.4% on residential properties. The bigger and more interesting number is our commercial grievances have dropped from year 2023 to 2024, approximately 33.5%. Overall, grievance total across the board is approximately 19% reduction in all complaints. So, which is an interesting number to look at. Something also interesting, commercial withdrawals. Due to the law that we had passed back, I don't remember what year it was passed, in regards to having I&Es come in, we seem to, every year, if people don't really feel they have a case and they have filed and they don't want to file the I&E, this year we had 8 people withdraw their grievances in regards to their commercial property, probably mostly due to the I&E law. Last but not least, we're looking at the total number of grievances per parcel. We're looking at, right now, only about 2.8% of residential properties are complaining about their value, which is down in the last few years, and commercial properties, only about 7.4% of commercial properties are feeling that their assessments are overassessed.
So these are just the grievances, not the tax cert filings.
No, those are not.
Now, just for the edification of the public, in order to do a tax cert, which the public has just heard us approve settlements on those cases, in order to file a tax cert proceeding, you first have to file a grievance and go before the Board of Assessment Review, which completes its determinations by September the 15th. Correct, Charlie?
Correct.
And then after that, I think the date to file a grievance is 30 days, which is generally October the 15th. So, and then we know what cases we have in court. The commercial cases do what they call Article 7 tax cert filings, and the homeowners, with some rare exceptions, file small claims. And those are usually, the tax cert cases go, we have attorneys handle. Small claims usually handled by Gordon, correct?
Yes, correct.
So that's what the process is for those who are interested. All right.
Any questions?
I was going to say, any questions?
There you go.
Anybody? All right. Charlie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we going to have a Crawford? Let me do Davey. Financial. Dave?
I have no additional reports unless you have any questions on.
Well, I made reference to the fact that from last year to this year, our total receivables went from 1.19% to 1.01%.
Yeah, so
Which
as
is
of
good.
June, yeah, I'm sorry, as of June 30th, they're 2.27 million. June 30th, it also includes the make whole for the villages. So, when Jeff was referring to the tax levy at 180 million, it's more like 240 million when you include the villages in there. So as of whatever's outstanding as of May 31st, then the town makes the villages whole for uncollected taxes. So, the June 30th is the high water mark. We've already identified the county, we've already made the school districts whole in April, and we'll be making the villages whole in July. So this is the high water mark. Typically, we look to get to about 1% by the end of the year. By December 31st, we're already there. So obviously, that's the reason why our interest and penalties, our interest income was 500,000 because our tax receivables are low. So we have cash reserves that we can invest in CDs and New York class, and we're earning, a nice interest rate in the current market. So, which we are still doing in 2024 as well.
All right, great. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Are we going to have a report on Crawford Park today or not?
Well, both Vic and Candy are attending on Zoom.
You're on mute.
If they don't want to do a report, that's okay.
Vic, are you there? Candy, are you there?
All right, we'll skip them. If they come on, they can scream.
Oh, I just heard something. Candy, was that you?
Yes.
Is there a Crawford report?
I believe I sent it to you.
Got it.
There is a report.
Okay. Thank you. Would you like to present, or we'll circulate it to the board?
Circulated is fine.
Very good. So we'll circulate it. Thank you.
Is Vic on?
He's there.
Let's just talk about the ball field.
I don't see him there anymore.
All right, I'll report on the ball field.
Okay.
Ball field is complete. We are going to, there may be some little fixes that still have to be done. Vic is projecting that the fence will come down around August 15th in time for band camp. And we're gonna plan on having the marching band burst through a ribbon, I hope. That's the plan. I don't know if that's gonna come off. So that'll be fun. If you guys want to go over there after the meeting or any time, just take a look and see how gorgeous it is. Really, really came out well. And I just spoke to Patrick earlier. When the fence comes down, I want him to put the drone over and take a really nice picture of it. The other thing I'll report on for Vic, Patrick just came up and gave me the thumbs up. Okay. The other thing that Vic and I spoke about, and they sent a memo, we had planned, and it looks like it's really coming to fruition, a multi-school cross-country event at Crawford Park primarily. And this will be with Blindbrook, Portchester, City of Rye, Rye Neck, and BOCES, all planning it. And this is scheduled for mid-September. So we're looking forward to that. So that's my Crawford report. Is Nick on?
Yes, he is.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Council. Nicholas Mecca, Receiver of Taxes. Just want to report that village collections, the first payments were very strong, but still we have 143 people in Rye Brook and 338 people in Portchester, that did not make their payments. Notices were sent out. We ask please that you pay up because the villages require this money to provide services to you. That's how they fund your police department, your DPW, your building department, your recreation. So please see what you can do to get the funds up to date. Secondly, July 31st will be the time to file liens for anyone who still has not paid 2023 taxes. This is the law. There's nothing we can do. It must be filed that day. So please, if you owe 2023 taxes, try and get that cleaned up because the lien on your property can affect your interest rate. Okay, any questions?
No questions, Nick. Just, I'm going to follow up. I don't know if you saw the presentation earlier with the, on the audit report, my statement about the interest rates. But I just want to confirm, you mentioned that the lien date is July 31st, but we already have a number of properties from the last year that are in lien and that are ready to go in rem. The law
Well, that's
was,
from 2021. That's
Right,
2 years.
yeah, we have 2 years. We have a total of, I believe, 9 properties now. And of those properties, 3 are residential. The legislature passed another law last year making certain changes into the in rem proceedings. However, with regard to homeowners, I think we should let them know that the receiver will be sending out homeowner warning notices very soon to those 3 homeowners who are in lien and subject to an in rem proceeding to take their property. So when they should pay their delinquent taxes or be subject to foreclosure. And the town council will be filing in rems against several commercial properties that are also delinquent. As you heard me speak, as the public has heard me speak, it's important for the town's financial well-being that we collect these delinquent taxes, because the tax-paying homeowner actually ends up supporting the non-paying residents, and that's just not fair. So, public warning. Thank you. I have nothing else, Nick. Does anybody on the council have?
Gary, it's Vic. I'm sorry, for some reason my computer would not let me be unmuted or show my video. The actual date for opening the field will be August 19th, the day the band camp from Portchester starts their camp. I actually received a call today from Portchester Little League about our baseball field. And yes, with the cross-country meet, all schools, the city of Rye High School, Rye Neck High School, Portchester High School, and Blindbrook High School have all confirmed they will be there.
I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Vic.
Vic,
You're welcome.
Do you want to talk about the Great Lawn Summer Series, as long as we're talking about Crawford?
Okay, yes, on Saturday night, we have Mike T and the Jam Show. We'll be playing, I believe it's from 7 to 9 this Saturday night. And then in August, we do have, I know Gil Paris comes back on the 25th, and a new person, Mark Berger and Ride, on August 10th. Our movies will start the end of August, September, and October, basically because it gets dark earlier, and this way the children are able to stay for the extent of the movies.
Great, fantastic.
Yes, I'm going to request that the council members calendar October 26th, because we will begin our movie night with a trunk or treat. So you might want to be there with your trunk filled with candy.
That was a great fun last year. Very successful.
What date is that?
October 26th.
October 26th.
Would you send out a calendar entry on that when you can?
Sure.
Thank you. Fantastic. Hope your report is submitted. Do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add,
Anything to say?
nothing to say.
Okay. Does anybody on the council have anything to say? I think we're ready to,
No,
okay,
just our special meeting, that's it.
then may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Next meeting is August 15th.